The original recurves were composite bows. They were made of wood, bone, cloth, and were held together with glue. It is thought to have originated in ancient Egypt in the second millennia BC. It is believed that from there it spread east, and as the bow spread, each culture added and changed things. From the Assyrians, Scythians, Greeks, Turks, Arabs, Indians, Chinese, Koreans, and Mongols. The recurve was a prominent part of their culture, history, and everyday life. The recurve was the perfect bow for the use on horse. Its compact size and power made it the bow of choice for many nations. Even the famed Roman army used recurves. With the advent of gunpowder, archery fell in decline. Although a few stalwarts held out, like the nobility who did it as a sport, to the poor who used it to survive. Much of that knowledge gained through thousands of years of experience was lost to us. In the West, where archery was really forgotten, the bow faded away. But the recurve will make a comeback, and what a comeback it is. In the late 1950s, the dominant design was the longbow. And the first recurves were really just a longbow with curved tips, like this Ben Pearson Palomino from 1958. Those curved tips, just like the one in ancient times, allowed the bow to be smaller while becoming faster. Then they added a D-flex to the limbs, like on this 1962 Ben Pearson Palomino. That D-flex again increased the performance. By this time, the performance gap between the classic longbow and the recurve was evident in favor of the recurve. In the late 1950s and early 60s, the recurve was the dominant bow in archery tournaments in the West. But just like in ancient times, the recurve would change again when technology moved forward. In the late 1960s came what many call the bat design. Like in this 1968 Ben Pearson Palomino. Gone was the full-length section of fiberglass on the belly. This design was so successful that it's still used to this day. Also in the 1960s came the takedown bow. Some were two-piece, but the three-piece design would go on to dominate the takedown market. Keeping with the spirit of innovation, metal risers were soon introduced, like this Bear Minuteman from the 1970s. In the 1980s came the ILF design. Previous takedown bows used bolts and pins to secure the limbs. What bolt size, how many bolts, and the location of that bolt was left up to the bowyer. And what this meant was the limbs from one bow would not work on another bow. The ILF standardized this so all limbs are interchangeable. On the sports side, the modern recurve has become the bow of choice for all archers competing in the Olympics. Now, believe it or not, longbows, horse bows, and many other bows are allowed to shoot in the Olympics. In recent years, archers have taken an Olympic setup. They discarded the sights, the long stabilizers and such, and this group is now called bare bow archers. And they have become the dominant bow for indoor field and target archery. In fact, it's become so popular that many events, they have their own class. From those humble beginnings in the second millennia BC in Egypt to the state-of-the-art recurves used by people like Brady Ellison, the recurve bow has been a part of and helped shape human history. All right, everybody. The first thing you do when you want a recurve is figure out what type. Do you want a Western style recurve, or like a modern recurve, I guess you could call it, or do you want a Asian or horse bow? All right, that's the first choice you got to look at. We're going to focus on the Western today, just for the fact that that's the only bows I have. Once we got our type, which we're doing Western, now you got to decide how many pieces of a bow do you want. You can get it in a one piece, which I personally love, but there are disadvantages to it. Transporting them can be a pain. You buy one, you find out you got the wrong draw weight, you got to get a whole nother bow. But bright side is they're gorgeous. You can get some beautiful wood inlays on these, and these things can be works of art. So if you don't want a one piece, you want one that's easier to transport and carry, I would recommend a takedown. This is a two-piece takedown. Remove this center pin, upper and lower detach. Like I said, much more easier to transport. Downside is sometimes, if you don't have the best build quality, they can break. But I haven't had that happen, so I guess I'm just lucky. And finally is the most common type of takedown. And that's what we call a three-piece takedown. Now you can have different types of limb fittings. You can have bolts, ILFs, one bolt, two bolts, bolt with pin, bolt with guide arms, whole bunch of stuff. The beauty of these is, let's say you buy it, you only buy a 30-pound, but you realize you need a heavier draw weight. Instead of buying a whole new bow like with the one piece here, you just buy a new set of limbs. So the adaptability of these are incredible. And that's why I think this is always your best choice when starting out. The next thing you need to take in consideration is the length. Now, what you're going to do can determine that length. People who do hunting a lot usually prefer a shorter bow, a little easier to maneuver through the woods and a tree stand and things like that. People who do target archery prefer a longer bow. Now I'm going to show you a couple. This is a 56-inch bow, one of the shortest I've seen. That's a hunting bow. This is a 68-inch bow. It's a target bow, can be used for hunting. Now, ideal sizes to me that I found is a 62, but the best compromise of them all, I believe, is a 66-inch bow. Gives you the benefits of a longer bow, which is a relaxed draw, easier to hold, right? As the benefits of not being so long, it's a tolerable length. So that's the next thing you got to do. Now, common lengths are 58, 60, 62, 66, and 68 inches. And the final area of consideration is, do you want to build it yourself? Two types you can build, one piece and takedown. This is a one piece semi-recurve I made. It's straightforward. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's straightforward. It takes a lot more into it. You got to build a press, you got to get air hoses, you got to do a lot because you're laminating different layers together. But then it turns out to be really gorgeous. And there's nothing more satisfying than shooting a bow that you made, and you'll never make a shot that you'll feel more of a sense of satisfaction from than hitting a bullseye with a bow you built, because you're going to go, man, I built this bow. The other one you can make is a takedown. Now, I'll show you. This is my first takedown. I would have just seen if I could make one. And you know what? It's a serviceable bow. That's a good word, huh? Serviceable bow? Serviceable bow. It shoots fine. But you know what? All I did is make the riser, and I took the limbs from somebody else. And this thing works great. You know what? But then I wanted to get better. So then I went out and bought some manufactured wood, and I made this riser. And it's real simple to make. You can make them for, depends on what type of material you want to use, for next to nothing. So if you're one of those people who like to craft stuff and make things, making your own bow might be an option. Alright everybody, there you have it, the Recurve, a classic bow. You know, what one should you use? Well, it depends. Maybe you're into horse archery, then you should go for a horse bow. Although you can use one of these. Or maybe you're like me, and you like to shoot vintage bows, like this 1967 Ben Pearson Colt. The beauty of the Recurve, besides the gorgeous wood, is its variety, right? So, I'm going to show you a couple more so you can shoot a vintage bow like this. One pieces are great because just the looks. It looks classic. But then we have some takedowns. Alright everybody, takedowns. Here's your classic. Now what you're going to see here, see the bolts are in the front? Well, Recurves have such variety, you can get them with the bolts on the back. Alright, this here This is my new bow from Lightning Archery. It's pretty cool. It's basically a sage. And I'm going to make a whole video on it. It's also going to be in this because this bow is a big part of this series. Alright, so let's try this one. It's going to make a little bit of noise. I haven't really tuned it yet. Alright, not bad at all. Now for this one. This one is the Stealth Hunter. Totally different design. Looks radical. Maybe that's what you want. You know, what you want and what we get's two different things in life. But this one is a shooter. Alright, the Recurve bow. I love them. I personally prefer them. Alright, I prefer them for the looks, the performance, which is probably the best there is, and I just do. Alright, so there you have it, the Recurve bow. So now we looked at a lot of things, right? We figured out what is traditional archery, so we can define it, so we can talk about it. Showed you the longbow. Now we talked about the Recurve. So up next, talk about the thing that propels it all, the string.